Welcome to Get Moving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon and I serve as your host. What we've been trying to do over the last several months and on different programs is really get our physicians and parents working together as partners. So we need to identify children with autism, with any developmental delay in speech or motor or ability to think, get them access to services and do it through early screening. But we also need to have the appropriate services available and we really want to take time to talk about how to access those services, what those services are. And so with us today is Sharon Elmansdorf. And so Sharon, just remind people about who you are and where you come from, and then we'll talk more about services.
Sure. Well, I have different jobs. I wear different hats. And I know in previous shows we've talked about the early identification piece, and I am a doctoral student researcher whose primary interest is in early identification of autism and related disabilities. But one of my other hats is as a behaviorist. I'm a branch supervisor for a local behavioral intervention program through Kegel Autism Consultants. And so I work directly with families of children primarily with autism on providing in-home behavioral services. Most of that's funded through our local regional center. But I think the key here is that, we've talked about early identification, but the importance of that really is not just to label a child and say, okay, they've got autism, that's wonderful, but to be able to then have families access these evidence-based services that actually will start to target some of the symptom areas of autism. So working on some of those disruptive and maladaptive behaviors, helping children to communicate with their peers and with adults, working on socialization skills. So it's a really important part of kind of the whole spectrum of autism is not only to say we can get them in and identify what it is early on, but to somehow access those autism-specific services that are actually going to help the families in the home and in the community.
I think, I don't want to date myself, let's see, 1969, that's a long time ago. I used to go out to Camarillo State Mental Hospital where everyone with autism was fairly housed there, and then Governor Reagan said, nope, there'll be no more of those services, everyone's going home now, and trying to prepare those homes for kids who are 16 and 19 and 20 years old, and working with Ivar Lovas and previous generation of graduate students, working on initially with shock sticks, which was not the way to go, and then a reward system. Things have gotten quite a bit different, I think, from our old days of M&Ms and just trying to shape behavior to make it socially acceptable.
Absolutely.
And some of that seems to some of it's the mirror neuron theory. So what are the theoretical bases for some of the therapies that you do?
Well, I think the particular therapy that we do is pivotal response treatment, and it's based on applied behavior analysis. In fact, Bob Kegel and Lynn Kegel, his wife, who developed PRT, Dr. Bob Kegel is a student of Ivar Lovas, so we do come from that tradition of behaviorism and reinforcement and so forth. But I think what the key is here that for these young children, and there's lots of theories about that, but for these really young children, that if we can catch them before the age of 3, in fact, if we can get them in before 3.5, we've seen the best long-term developmental outcomes, that there's still some plasticity in the brain, that we can still start to rewire some of that and have children be able to then live more independently. And things have changed tremendously, I think, since what you were talking about, Camarillo State Hospital, because what we're talking about now is in-home services, children who get therapies in the home, where we're doing lots of parent education, so parents are able to follow through with the program, and children who are able to access regular education services, so we're not having to house children in institutions anymore. So I think the key is getting them in early and really being able to change some of those early behaviors and hopefully ameliorate some of the symptoms and not see some of the more disruptive extreme behaviors that probably you were seeing in Camarillo early on in those days.
Well, and I think things have changed too. At one point there was a black box and the therapist would go in the black box with the child and the therapist would walk out and close the door, and now involving parents has made a tremendous difference because it's early and continuous. I think that's really the key, and that they feel maybe some power back in their lives. But I think we're going to hear more of that from a mom. Where do you see things going in terms of applying services?
I actually do see them going more in the direction of more parent education and consultation in general in the state of California. We're moving towards that, so less of the one-on-one therapies with children, and that's something that in PRT and with the Kegel Autism Center we've done. It's a been our philosophy, is to provide services to parents so that they can provide those services throughout the day and different contexts. And also I think in different ways, and there's a lot of research going on in different modules and different ways of accessing intervention, because we do have so many kids who are being diagnosed with autism. I mean, I think the recent statistics at the CDC are about 1 in 110 kids, that there aren't enough of us, enough behaviorists to go around. And I would say, ABA type therapies like PRT have the most evidence behind them, but you're talking about at least a minimum of 5, 10, 20 or more hours a week. And so I don't think every family can access that, especially outside of California when they don't have regional center systems. So I think we're looking at modules like workshop models, DVDs, being able to see if parents can learn from a DVD module. Podcasts are kind of the wave of the future. Can we kind of put these things on the web and have parents look at that and then try to translate what they're seeing into their own homes? And we've had some success, and we've done some research in that at UCSB.
Well, I'm going to bring your enthusiasm back in just a minute.
Sure.
Right now, we're going to come to a close and bring on a mother to really talk about how these services have come to her home and what the effect has been on her children and on her own life, too. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here with Mary, and we've been hearing about accessing services, and inviting someone into your home for a cup of coffee is hard enough, trying to get your kitchen clean and everything else. And what was it like for you in terms of accessing services? Tell us a little bit about your family and how you had to invite strangers into your home. And did they stay strangers, I guess?
No, they did not stay strangers. They're actually part of my family. My son Jack is now 8. Getting services for me was fairly easy compared to some of the stories that I've heard. I actually started noticing that my son was different about at 12 months. I did go to his pediatrician and express my concerns. He was not developing normally. He was not crawling. He was not talking, just simple words. And I got the same, you're a paranoid first-time mother, he's just a boy, things will develop, give him time. So I went back at, the interval times. By 18 months, he was way behind. He had started walking, but he was not pointing, he was not crawling, he never hit any of the milestones. I got the same response. Give him 6 more months. I knew in my gut that something was wrong. I had a very supportive family. My parents were very supportive. They said, you need to do what you need to do. If you do not feel something is right, then you need to pursue it. I did pursue it. I just talked to people. A neighbor had a daughter that was not diagnosed with anything, but she had learning disability. I found out about regional center. I called them. They came out to assess him. He was, I believe, 22 months. I got him in regional center due to his speech delay because he was not talking. At the time, I had no idea what autism was. I'd never heard of autism. I didn't know what that was. And I said, could there be something wrong? I'd had his hearing tested. He had tubes put in his ears. We didn't, at the time, know. And they told me, don't worry about a diagnosis. Even if he was diagnosed, you'd get the same services you're getting now. Okay, the pediatrician still told me, don't worry about it, he's a boy, let's give him 6 more months. He went into early start and he went into a preschool program at the time. It was at the preschool program where I met another mother who introduced me to a developmental pediatrician. It was at that time that I realized that a developmental pediatrician is completely different than a regular pediatrician. I called this doctor and made an appointment for my son. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in for, it was like 3 months. So I took him to the doctor. The doctor examined him out in the waiting room area, and from watching him, knew it right off the bat and said, your son is on the spectrum. He has autism. I said, great. Thank you for confirming my feelings. You tell me what I need to do. Now that I have a diagnosis, I don't really care what the diagnosis is. You tell me what I need to do to help him. And one of the things that he said was, I believe that your son would greatly benefit from PRT. At the time, I had no idea what PRT was, and that's pivotal response training. And he referred me to the Kegel program at UCSB. That was in September of 2003. It took me till January of 2004 to get an appointment because they were extremely booked, and I was so blessed to even get in there.